Hello everyone, great to see you all again. Welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at an example essay here, a compare and contrast short essay using the PEE method for paragraph, right? Point, evidence, and explain. So this is my example here, which you can see in real time how it will actually look. So, well, let's get straight into it, shall we? So first of all, you'll have your introduction, as you can see here, your introduction, right? And it's important for your introduction to give a bit of background information. So you can see there, I'll just highlight it for you here. So this is your background information. The topic is on kind of communication. So giving a little bit of background, bit of context for the reader. So that's what you want to think about for your introduction, background information there. And then, importantly, you want to mention your thesis statement. So this will be your thesis statement here, just highlighting it for you here. And a thesis statement is you're telling the reader what you will be discussing, right? So the reader will know exactly what you're going to be discussing in your essay, and perhaps in which order you will be discussing those points, right? So that'll be your thesis statement. So once again, don't forget, you'll have your background information just to start off with, followed by your thesis statement telling the reader what your essay is all about, right? And then last but not least, you want to make sure that you are mentioning the main ideas and the criteria for each paragraph, right, in your thesis statement. So maybe, for example, you could say, firstly, I'm going to be discussing, secondly, I'll be examining, and finally, so the reader will know exactly, okay, in which paragraph you will be discussing what, right? So it's like a little roadmap for them. It makes it easier for them to know what's coming in your essay. Not only what your essay is about, but the order in which you will be discussing those various points in your essay. Awesome. Let's move on then. So don't forget, you always need to write in paragraphs. Very important. Always write in paragraphs. And you want to make sure that you have a topic sentence for the beginning of each paragraph, right? So you can see here, I'll just highlight here. And there you go. So you can see my example here. I'm giving the topic sentence, and the topic sentence explains to the reader what you will be discussing, right? And this links back to what you've mentioned actually in the introduction in your thesis statement. So you can see here, I've just highlighted here, forms of communication. So you're going to be discussing the forms of communication. Let's just go back briefly to the introduction here, right? And you can see here I've actually mentioned first we're going to be discussing the form of communication. So firstly, the form of communication is similar. Okay, so you want to make sure that each topic sentence is relating to what you said you're going to be discussing in the actual introduction, right? So you want to link it back to what you said you're going to be discussing. Okay, so that's the first thing. You'll have your topic sentence. And then afterwards, then you'll have your PEE, and don't forget your PEE stands for point, evidence, explanation. And this is where you're going to be talking about your points, maybe give some evidence, maybe some examples, and then you're going to explain it. All right, so don't forget to do that. Yeah. And then perhaps you're going to have then your concluding sentence at the end here, where you maybe just going to summarize very briefly what you discussed, just the main points there. So that's kind of like your structure of how your paragraphs should look like, right? So let's just recap here, everyone. So remember, topic sentence comes first, always the first few sentences. topic sentence tells the reader what you're going to be discussing in your paragraph, and it must link back to what you have already mentioned in your introduction. So for example, form of communication, and we go back to our introduction, see our thesis statement. Firstly, the form of communication is similar, so you're linking it back to what you've already mentioned, in your thesis statement, in your introduction. Then you're going to have your PEE, paragraph, point, evidence, explanation, and lastly, just conclude a few sentences, summarize what you have written. And then you would continue that with paragraph 2, and also make paragraph 3 as well, right? And those will be the same format. Once again, you have your topic sentence at the beginning here. So we're talking about maybe the speed of communication, so the reader knows, okay, this paragraph you're going to be talking about the speed of communication, and you're linking it back to what you've already mentioned you're going to be discussing in your thesis statement. Let's have a look here, and there you go, right? However, the speed of communication is now, there you go, you can see, right? So make sure that your topic sentences in each paragraph link back to what you say you're going to be discussing in your thesis statement. So you want to link those back, right? Don't talk about something completely different. Yeah. And then once again, simply you're just then going to have your points, evidence, and explanation in your paragraph. Points you want to be discussing, all right, and then your evidence, maybe some examples, and you're going to be explaining it. Last but not least, you're going to have a little bit of a concluding few sentences where you're summarizing the main points of what you have mentioned. Okay, so that's a kind of structure you want to be looking at there for a compare and contrast PEE paragraph. This is kind of like an example here for you, right? Last but not least, once you have done your paragraphs, you want to have a little paragraph at the end where you're concluding, you're restating basically your thesis statement. Remember, your thesis statement is what you're telling the reader what you're going to be discussing. Your conclusion, you're just kind of restating that, but you're just summarizing the main points, right, of what you've discussed. Don't give too much detail. Don't give any new information. Just summarize what you feel is important, that's critical, right? Don't forget to do that for your conclusion, right? So it's basically a summary of the main ideas for each paragraph that you have been discussing, right? So let's say there's 3 paragraphs. You want to summarize the 3 main ideas for each of those paragraphs, and maybe give a final thought, your final opinion for the end sentence, final thoughts. Yeah. Okay, great. So let's just have a little bit of a summary here. So your introduction must have background information. For the first few sentences, just tell the reader a bit of background to your topic, right? So it gives them a bit of idea, a bit of context to what you could be discussing. The thesis statement then obviously is telling the reader exactly what you're going to be discussing, and perhaps in which order. So firstly, I'll be discussing, secondly, finally. So you're telling the reader what points you're going to be discussing first. Don't forget, each paragraph you have your main ideas, so 1 main idea per paragraph. All right, always have your topic sentence first of each paragraph, which tells the reader what your paragraph's about, and then you have your PEE points, your evidence and explain in that paragraph, as you can see there. And obviously then you have your concluding sentence within that paragraph where you're just briefly summarizing. After you've done that, then you'll have your conclusion, right? And don't forget your conclusion, you're just restating your thesis statement, summarizing maybe the main ideas that you have been discussing. Don't bring in any new detail, no new information. just the main points. And then your final thought, what you think, maybe a recommendation. Okay, everybody, so that concludes that little short tutorial here on making your essay, right? Compare and contrast type essay, PEE, paragraph structure. Thanks for listening, everyone, and good luck in your essay writing. As always, take care and stay awesome.